Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Kind Health Group YouTube and podcast channel. We have a great guest with us today, Grace Pascale.
Hi.
Grace Pascale is a registered dietitian nutritionist with a life's mission to help others find healing and vitality by reforming their relationships to food and their bodies. She does this by encouraging divorces from diet culture. I love that. Teasing out the confusing and often contradictory information surrounding nutrition and educating her patients on the importance of eating whole foods in abundance. This is so great. Grace's area of expertise include plant-based nutrition, eating disorder recovery, chronic disease prevention, and anti-inflammatory diets. She has a Master of Science in Whole Foods Nutrition, a bachelor's degree in psychology, and experience working with a variety of patients in both inpatient and outpatient settings, including long-term care, private practice, and a level 3 trauma center. She's passionate about the health and happiness of her clients and offers a balanced approach to wellness, providing evidence-based research in a digestible manner and carefully assessing readiness for change. Grace is active on social media, providing nutrition tips and disease-fighting recipes on her Instagram account at Baby by Chickpeas, and her YouTube channel, and on her website at gracepascalenutrition.com. Welcome, Grace. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me, and thanks for reading that.
And Annie in the house.
Hi, Grace. It's so nice to have you here. I guess I'm going to get started right away and just kind of figure out how and why did you end up in this field?
Yeah, so for me, this journey started a long time ago. When I was in high school, I had a period where, I think we all have those times where our life is just kind of discombobulated for a year. My friend group fell apart. I was kind of in strained relationships with my family and just under kind of the immense academic pressures that sometimes being in high school brings, and developed some really problematic coping mechanisms. I was counting calories. I was working out like a maniac. I was, isolating myself from friends and family. Looking back as a professional, it's really easy for me to see that for kind of what it is, which is disorderly behaviors, of course. But at the time, I just thought I was doing whatever I could to be healthy. So I ended up, looking in the mirror one day and I had lost 25 pounds. And I remember saying to my parents, I need help. And I walked into a local dietitian's office knowing nothing about the profession or what I was getting myself into. And she was incredible. She changed my life in so many ways. She was strong and smart, and she derived her worth from, her character and just what she was able to offer others. And I really envied that and ended up gaining, the weight back, of course, recovering fully. And at that point, I really fell in love with the connection between nutrition and mental health, and realized that was the gift that I wanted to give to others and empower others with throughout my life and my career.
So let me ask you this. Now that we're in the middle of this pandemic, stay home order, what are your clients most, what do they need the most? What are they asking for your help with the most?
So I love that you asked that question after, what we just spoke about, because it is it's a very triggering time for people. A lot of people want assistance with just combating negative body image and diet culture mentalities that are associated with things like not being able to move their bodies in a way they typically are able to, not being able to go get fresh produce at the drop of a hat. Additionally, wanting to reduce the risk or severity of certain comorbidities known to complicate the course of COVID-19, things like heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, obesity. And while I tend to shy away from focusing solely on weight as a dietitian, excess body fat does seem to be a risk factor in terms of prognosis for COVID. So, it's difficult knowing that we know a body mass index over 28 appears to complicate the course, and the average BMI in the United States is over 29. So while these facts I think are really important to consider, it's also extremely triggering for many of my patients who have suffered from eating disorders or are currently suffering from eating disorders. So my time right now is kind of spent doing this dance of helping others, get healthy and stay well, while also trying to protect them from some of the mentalities that can creep into their head during this time, as far as weight management and concerns about body image.
I love the term divorce from diet culture. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because I never tell anyone they should be on a diet. I hate the word diet. So
Right.
please.
Yeah.
I'm glad we can connect on that level. And I think when I say divorce from diet culture, really just what I mean is learning to dismiss the really pervasive messaging we receive in this culture, particularly as women on a daily basis. That we're not thin enough, not pretty enough, not dainty enough, or muscular enough, whatever it might be. And just kind of learning to dismiss that for what it is, which is, a marketing tactic employed by a $1 billion weight loss industry, and it's a falsity. It's
Falsity.
just
Okay.
not true, and it's just kind of we're falling victim to this marketing that this $1 billion industry is throwing our way every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Everything you're saying just resonates so much with me, and I know with Annie as well. That's so much of what we discuss with our patients on a daily basis. So it's nice to hear that that we're in sync with that.
Absolutely.
Can you explain a little bit about how you start with a new client? I mean, especially you do a lot of telehealth. How does it start? If you're taking a new patient now, kind of walk us through the process.
Yeah, so I mean, every patient's kind of context and goals are different, but I always like to start just by getting a really comprehensive understanding of kind of where they're at and where they're looking to go. So whether that means reforming their relationship to food or learning about nutrition for, an irritable bowel disease or preventing breast cancer recurrence, it really starts with just gaining a good context of their situation. And from there, I like to keep sessions very solution oriented. So I spend a lot of time educating and goal setting to work towards those goals that we set. And then follow-ups are typically used to kind of troubleshoot any barriers to change as needed, or, redirect goals as we see fit.
What's your biggest challenge with telehealth? I mean, I know we've all sort of moved post-COVID into this telehealth industry. What's a challenge and what's a benefit, I guess?
Yeah, so I think challenges are obvious, right? And the big one that comes to mind for me is just the fact that 80% of communication is nonverbal. So it really requires some real intentionality. It requires, really trying to make up for the gaps that telehealth isn't able to give us. For example, I'm not able to measure anthropometrics. I'm not able to perform a nutrition-focused physical exam on my patients. So being in coordination of care with MDs and psychologists and specialists is really important for, caring for my patients well. But additionally, I think that there are so many benefits, some of which I anticipated. Of course, flexibility. I'm a working mom with a young baby. Many of my clients are oftentimes working parents with busy lives as well. So that I had planned for, but there are benefits that I wasn't aware of that I've really come to love. For example, I'm sort of allowed a glimpse into my clients' lives that I wouldn't otherwise get. So I'm able to take note of, their family dynamic, perhaps their food preparation space. I get to kind of arrange my calls and appointments for when I'm most present and most inspired and most engaged. And that's something you really don't get inside the four walls of a clinic or in those typical office hours. So I have really enjoyed that aspect as well, while certain aspects have required some more intentionality.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to agree. I think that's just such an interesting benefit to telehealth for me, and I think for Annie as well, is just having a glimpse into your patients' lives, into their home, what their cooking space looks like, what their environment looks like, and we never ever see that. So to have that window is, I think, really important and really informs our clinical decision making. So that's just a really good point.
Absolutely. And their support system, which we know as practitioners is huge. I mean, if there is fighting like cats and dogs in the back of your video conference, you're well aware that that patient is maybe not being supported in the ways that best, support them on their journey. So it's just a really interesting, eye-opening glimpse. And I've really enjoyed that.
Now, I know Mother's Day is this Sunday and you have a little one. I read one of your articles on your website about the relationship mothers and teaching their children how to eat. Do you want to speak a little bit about that, about how important that role is and what mothers can do for children, especially during lockdown, that would be helpful?
Yes, absolutely. This, I think, is probably my favorite topic to speak on. I could fill a library with the power that moms have to impact the way their children, particularly their daughters, learn to eat. I think first and foremost, having and demonstrating a healthy relationship to food yourself as a mom, avoiding using guilt-based language in the context of the foods you eat, or self-deprecating comments about your weight, calling yourself fat. We know as moms that our children observe, our every move. And if we teach them that their value is based on their size or their ability to resist going back for seconds, they will believe us. So I just think that is, learning to eat intuitively and demonstrating that is of the utmost importance. I think that if you, yourself have struggled in the past, tell your daughters or your children your stories. Let them know that pursuing perfection is, one of the darkest journeys they'll ever take as a woman. And there's that saying, you can be the ripest, juiciest peach in the world, and there's still going to be someone that doesn't like peaches, right? So it's not worth sacrificing your livelihood and your happiness for kind of an arbitrary weight that may or may not even make you any happier on an authentic level. So I really like to emphasize that. I think, additionally, if we have older children, just things as simple as telling them to unfollow people on social media that make them or their bodies feel inadequate. Making sure they understand that Instagram is oftentimes highly curated and photoshopped and kind of this highlight reel. And even if it's not, another woman's beauty is not necessarily the absence of your own. So just really reminding children, particularly daughters, of things of that nature, and being vulnerable with our children, sharing our experiences. All of that I think is helpful. And the social media one I think is helpful no matter what age you are.
I couldn't agree more. That's very beautifully put. Yeah, and it's something that it's hard for adult women to do. So I think being mindful of that when we're speaking to our children is really critical, because, like you said, they are observing every single thing.
Yes.
and then some.
Yeah, exactly.
Grace, can you talk a little bit about intuitive eating for a minute, which I think is a really important, an important term or phrase people could use right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So intuitive eating, simply put, is just learning to nourish ourselves based on our body's internal cues. It's doing things like rejecting that diet mentality we were talking about, practicing mindfulness, really simply honoring our hunger and our fullness. The beautiful part of intuitive eating, and I think this whole body positive movement that's really popular in the media now, is it actually originated out of science. And that science being that intuitive eaters not only weigh less, but they spend less time thinking about food. On the contrary, those who tend to try and restrict their intake via portion control or calorie counting, they tend to overeat in response to things like advertising, all you can eat buffets, supersized portions, or overindulging and kind of snowballing after indulging in what is deemed to be a cheat food. So I think, intuitive eating is really the only long-term solution we have to both having a healthy relationship to food and our bodies. So it's one of my favorite things to promote and empower people with.
I know Dr. Nanos and I were at a food conference, a health and wellness food conference, and one of the exercises that we did, where we were to take a frozen grape and hold it in your mouth. Do you remember this, Dr. Nanos?
Yes, I do.
And we had to wait. There was a lot of wait time, and we had to wait. And some people would chew the grape frozen, and other people would peel the skin off and wait for the grape to melt. And I really do think it's about knowing when your body's full, not necessarily what's on your plate or what's served to you in a restaurant. What someone else deems as portion size, I think it's really important. So I think it's and during the pandemic especially, people are bored and they are grazing and they're going to their kitchens more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, it's okay. I was thinking, and also to Annie's point, and to yours as well, looking at the other social aspects of community and how eating brings us together as families and as friends. Maybe not so much now, but that's such another very important aspect of food. And we all have to eat, which makes it, can be a blessing and a curse for some people who struggle. But
Right.
I think focusing on how that brings us together and bonds us to our loved ones and creates a social tie is also part of intuitive eating in a way, so that you can, be mindful of the people around you, the conversations happening, be engaged. And I think that too is a contributing factor.
Absolutely. And I think, allowing space for it is natural to eat differently when your world turns upside down. It is natural to emotionally eat when you are living in fear and anxiety. So really allowing space for that and not holding judgment against that, but just being mindful. I feel emotional and I'm going to walk towards my refrigerator right now and allow that to happen, but let's not let this snowball into months of depression and pattern shifting. It's more just giving yourself grace, but listening to your body's needs emotionally, physically, all of the above, just tuning in more.
Absolutely.
Can we talk about food for a little bit?
Yes, let's. I'm getting hungry.
So I'm going to get into a bunch of questions here, but I just want to know right now, where are you getting produce from? Are you still shopping in your regular grocery stores? Are you finding yourself going to farmers markets? Are you in a CSA? Where are you going? What are you doing?
Yeah, so right now I am going to Trader Joe's. I live right next to one. It's convenient, it's affordable. I think number one, they've taken really great precautions. But number two, one of the biggest kind of misconceptions about healthy eating or eating more plants, whatever it might be, is that it's really expensive. But when we think about, eating a diet centered around whole plant foods, or eating well, eating to promote wellness or reduce the risk of chronic disease, we think about some of the cheapest foods on the planet, sweet potatoes, whole grains, beans, lentils, brown rice. Fresh fruits and vegetables are great, obviously, but frozen is perfectly healthy too. And so I shop at Trader Joe's. I think it's really affordable. I love to get staples there like oats, chickpeas, lentil-based pastas, things like sweet potatoes, whole grains, hummus. My family loves to make kind of creamy dressings from hummus and nut and seed butters. So those are some of our staples, and that's where we're getting it right now. But it is a hard time, if you live somewhere and you don't necessarily feel perfectly comfortable with the precautions they're taking, I can imagine it's very difficult. So I'm sure a lot of people are ordering produce online, and that seems to be more of a common route others are taking.
Now, for your family, do you sort of food prep? I know you have a baby, so I'm sure you probably do a lot of food prepping, or maybe even making your own baby food, but do you batch cook? How does it work for you?
I do. So I like to batch cook one or two entrees kind of on Sunday or Monday, and then again on Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll kind of eat and repurpose those throughout the week. So if we make, for example, like a tofu scramble for lunch on Sunday, we'll have that for breakfast, and the next day we will throw that filling into like a whole wheat tortilla with some black beans, some spinach, and like a spicy cashew crema, and have a burrito for lunch. So it's all about kind of keeping it interesting, repurposing, changing up the texture, the environment, the look, all of that. I think that eating healthy really requires some creativity to keep it something that you want to do. So that's kind of what we do in our household.
And what are some of your favorite recipes? What for both for batch cooking and then just for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yeah, I think that, as a mom, for sure, my favorite recipes right now are ones I can throw together in 15 minutes at the end of a day. So I love things that really effortlessly incorporate all the healthy foods that we try and shoot for in our household. So one of my favorite dishes right now is like a creamy red lentil pasta. The recipe is actually on my website, but it's one of my family's favorites, and we use, either black bean noodles or chickpea noodles, some kind of legume-based noodle, which is essentially they just grind up the dried legume and use the flour to make pasta from. It effortlessly adds a ton of protein, a ton of fiber, and all you have to do is roast some vegetables on the side, and it's a fairly complete meal with starch, protein, and your veggies. So we love to do that with like a creamy plant-based like pink or vodka sauce, that creamy pink and white pasta sauce. That's definitely something we're addicted to right now in quarantine. But things like that, where it's just easy, the whole family loves it. And I'll be honest, salads don't get the job done in our house, so we don't do too many of those.
Yeah, same here. I love that. We'll have to check that out. We'll post a link to your website and Instagram as well in the show notes.
Oh, awesome. That's sweet.
So I sometimes think the words whole foods or plant forward scares people who automatically assume that, I don't know, if they don't, they'll, oh, you mean you want me to go vegan, which is not what I'm recommending. Or can you speak a little bit about, Dr. Nanos and I love the term plant forward, but I don't know if everybody knows it. So how do you describe what I know every patient is different. What do you recommend in general terms?
Yeah, so I think, when I think of the term whole foods diet, I think of the base of your pyramid. The majority of what you're eating should be foods where nothing, if you took those foods individually, we didn't remove anything of value or add anything of concern. So I think foods that are ripe, fresh, that contain things like fiber and antioxidants and water, things our bodies were trained to eat in really large quantities without negative health consequence. So a hard and fast rule I like is, if you stuck it in the ground, would it grow? Is it alive? That to me is what kind of a whole foods plant-based, what a whole foods plant-based diet should entail first and foremost. I think ultimately, if you want to involve some faux meat or some real meat or some cheese or some fake cheese, all of it's, up to you. But I do think the majority of what we eat should be unprocessed whole plant foods that are, colorful, fibrous, and disease fighting.
So Annie and I talk a lot about meeting people where they are in terms of their dietary preferences and their food preferences to kind of help them get started. And that's, as she was saying, it's saying the words whole food and plant-based or plant forward can be very intimidating. And there are people who, haven't eaten a vegetable in 10 years, and you're throwing this at them, and, they're meat and cheese, meat and dairy people. They're, very committed to that. How do you help them just make those first steps? I think that's the big challenge that we see, and that's hard for people to wrap their heads around.
Absolutely. So I like to really start on a small, realistic level. If a client comes to me after the first session or on the first session and says, hey, I went from eating, biscuits and gravy and bacon and fried eggs every morning to now I'm eating a smoothie with half a banana and a couple strawberries and some almond milk. That's all I have for breakfast. That's not what I want to hear. I don't want it to be an all or nothing situation, because to me, that's writing on the wall that it's not going to be sustainable or enjoyable for them. So what I like to do is, okay, well, let's back up. What are the aspects of your breakfast or red meat or cheese or potato chips? What are the aspects of those that you like? Can we replicate that in a food that's slightly healthier? Or do you want to hang on to that food and instead let's focus on infusing your diet with, shooting for 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables and changing nothing else. Or like you mentioned, if they're really foreign to fruits and vegetables, let's add a serving of, 3 fruits per day. And that way we're not taking away a behavior they love, but more adding a behavior, which research shows is easier for people to sustain, and that naturally will kind of just displace some of those foods that can be more problematic in large quantities.
Yeah, I like that approach, the crowding in of vegetables and fruits rather than the removal. The feeling of being deprived, I think, is very difficult for people.
Absolutely.
I also think there are so many options. One of my favorite parts of my job is if I get to take a patient out to lunch, If I can sit with a patient and take them to, I don't know, there's so many great restaurants, and just order something and they'll say, oh, what's that? Can I try that? Or I've never seen that. It's just such an opportunity to educate. And I really missed that during this pandemic. I missed the human connection. I miss taking a walk with the patient. And like you said, it's behavior modifications. Find out what they're doing and how do we modify it a little bit. I love that you do that with your patients.
Yeah, I envy you. I think walking with patients is such a cool way to spend your interactions with them. And I love that you do grocery store tours and all of that. So yeah, it's those aspects I think that we're missing the most right now. But yeah, going back to the question, I think that crowding in is easier than scolding people for their lifestyle. So I'm glad we can all kind of agree and employ that tactic.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about teaching. I mean, I know you kind of got into this on, from your own situation, and it's really inspiring that you now want to educate others. Talk to me a little bit about, what does that feel like? This is your full-time job and you are helping people bit by bit and really educating them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my transformative experience is what drives my passion in this field. So I think when I think about my career and what I want to accomplish, it all comes from a place of wanting that for the little girl in me that never had that education. I teach this because schools don't, and it's life-changing and it's critical. And I think we're a really susceptible culture. Like I mentioned, we're bombarded with imaging and pervasive messaging every single day telling us we're not good enough. Oh, and by the way, we're not even going to really tell you how to get to a place of health and vitality. We're just going to sell you this Band-Aid. And so for me, that's really a driving force. I think that you don't come into an industry like this for the money. We know dietitians, I think the average salary is like 65 grand or something like that. So you really get into it oftentimes because of a personal story and that those intrinsic values of wanting for others what you maybe feel you didn't have for yourself, wanting a different future for my daughter than I had for myself. Those are definitely the things that drive kind of my everyday and that bring a lot of joy and authenticity to my interactions with my clients and my patients as well.
Yeah, well put. And I think I have to echo those sentiments. The same holds true in medicine for physicians. We are taught nothing in medical school, maybe like a half day on nutrition throughout, 7 or 8 years of medical training, which is sad. Because as we all know here, so much of what goes, so much of what we put into our mouths and what we eat informs our future health and in such a profound way. And there is sadly, our whole healthcare model is really now based on reactive medicine and focusing on disease rather than prevention. And there is no money in prevention, as you well know. I mean, my question to you, if you have a great answer, how do we create value for that for people? How do we translate that into something of value that can transform health for everyone? And that's the big mystery.
It is. I mean, there's no big broccoli, right? There's no industry that
big
benefits.
Broccoli. I love that.
There's just not, right? And it's no one part of the chain's fault, right? It's not doctors' fault. It's the system. It's set up so that there is no incentive to promote education or prevention. So I agree. I think it's really challenging, and I don't know that I necessarily have the answer, but I think what is so valuable is honestly that we have avenues like social media right now. I mean, I think a lot of jokes are made about professionals not being qualified or people that, went to YouTube University. But the truth is there is a lot of valuable information online right now. And you have qualified individuals like you ladies and myself that are licensed, are certified, are educated, and are willing to put out information free of charge to the public, in hopes of a better world. And I think that is a really awesome development in today's society. So I think social media is one thing. And additionally, I think when people kind of get a taste of what a healthier diet or a healthier mindset looks like, that in itself becomes kind of intrinsic motivation for that snowball effect, to learn more, to be better, to continue to grow in, the direction of health and vitality, whatever that looks like to them, whether that's ramping up their physical activity, learning to move joyfully, incorporating more colorful plant foods, all of that. I think it's so valuable that it sells itself. And when we think about, certain hospitals out there that are trying more nutrition-based interventions, I think the labs oftentimes speak for themselves. I know that, UC San Diego Medical Center is doing like the Ornish cardiac rehab program, and people come in with, lipids that are just off the charts, and they leave almost as if they never had a cardiac episode at all. And it's just incredible. I think the labs oftentimes speak for themselves in scenarios where you give nutrition an opportunity to have an impact. So I think, all those things together are definitely serving the movement.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully we're on a better trajectory now more than ever, that people are focusing more on food and thinking about that with greater intention, as you said. That's certainly my hope as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to ask, I know you have a little baby at home. I know we've been in lockdown. I can only imagine what it's like having a little baby at home.
Chaos.
Challenges, benefits of, lockdown with a baby.
Yeah. I mean, hard and fast, lack of childcare, right? My patients kind of rely on my full attention and a tranquil place to talk about their greatest concerns, struggles, and insecurities. And a baby crying in the background doesn't really, suit those circumstances very well. But it's been really fun. She loves that her dad and I are both home all the time. She has no idea what's going on. She just thinks she won the lottery. So it's been fun for sure. It's chaos, but it's beautiful chaos.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll look back on it years from now as like, oh, remember during the pandemic, we had so much time together.
Right. In a ways, she's like a pandemic baby. She learned to crawl in pandemic. She's going to learn to walk in the next week or two. She's waving and laughing. Like, all this happened in the last couple weeks. So it's really funny. She's our COVID baby.
Now, I know everyone's spending a lot more time in the kitchen, and I know you know how to cook, and we know how to cook, but have you had any epic fails in the kitchen lately?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, there's evidence in my sink right now, but I was steaming beets for my daughter the other day, and as you guys know, got lost in cleaning up the kitchen, or God forbid, trying to be productive in some manner, and the water all evaporated, and I singed the pan, like melted into itself.
Oh,
and
God.
My husband is currently trying to salvage it. I don't think we're going to make a recovery. I threw away the beets. I was like, who knows? Heavy metals could have sifted up into the situation. That was an epic fail.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. I'm like, good. I am teaching people to nourish their bodies, and here I have some smoked beets I'm trying to feed my 10-month-old. Really, really classy stuff over here.
And what about if you're not in the mood to cook? Do you have a go-to order out, order in place?
We have been doing pizza. I think that is maybe not what you would expect of a dietitian, but we are subscribing to the mindset that, number one, if we're going to order out, we're going to go for it. It's going to be something that we wouldn't make at home or make very well at home. So we're going for it. Every now and then on Friday or Saturday, we'll be like, let's just order takeout and watch a movie. And it's been so nice, honestly, just kind of kicking our feet up and allowing that to be, our fun little treat. But yeah, we're big pizza people in this house. We've been loving, I think the name of the place we go to is called Fresh Brothers. They do like a kind of a plant-based pizza situation where we just get a bunch of veggies, and I think they have a vegan cheese and some other fun toppings. So that's been really fun.
Nice. So if you, this is a little bit out there, but if you had to be stuck on a deserted island, what 3 foods would you choose? Just curious.
Ooh, okay. I would pick banana pancakes for sure. Thai yellow curry. I have an addiction that is a podcast for another day on that stuff. And I think ripe mangoes would probably be my top 3.
Have you been to Thailand?
No, but my husband and I have been trying to plan a trip for 2 years, but I was working in a hospital, first last year, and the whole vacation doesn't really work so well when you're working in a hospital. And then I was, very pregnant, and then I launched my private practice with a newborn, all that business. So we're hoping to go to Thailand soon. Have you guys been there?
Yeah,
Yes, we both have.
amazing.
Those three foods are like the staple of Thailand. That's why I was asking.
I would thrive. Maybe I was like a Thai princess in a past life, because that sounds up my alley.
I have to say, when I was in Thailand, I took an intensive cooking class. It was probably my favorite cooking class. Of course, granted, they're like, oh, we need green papaya. They pick it right off the tree and slice it. I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah,
But
that really translates. Yeah.
Yeah, but with that said, I've seen the recipe for your banana pancakes, and those are no normal banana pancakes. They look absolutely amazing. They would be on my desert island if I had those pancakes.
Thank you. Yeah, they're heartier. I think that's kind of a common theme with my recipes. I like to eat food that gets you full, that's hearty. I'm not so much of I guess I'm a volume eater is what I'm trying to say. I like things that are dense and filling. So those are pancakes. Those are not your mama's pancakes, that's for sure.
Nice. I'll have to check those out. I've been in a pancake making mode.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Grace, for taking the time to talk to us. And it's such an honor. And I'm so glad that, you have used your platform to help others and to educate. And just thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. And thanks for giving me the space to come on here today and talk with you guys further. I know we were kind of going to collaborate in some fashion, and then, the world turned off. So I'm really glad that you guys found this avenue. How long have you guys been doing YouTube and podcasts and all of that?
Well, it turns out we had started it right before the pandemic, and we had a bunch of episodes that we were ready to launch that were pre-COVID. And then all of a sudden they didn't seem as relevant because nothing seems real that happened before COVID-19. So we started doing new content based on COVID, and we've gone back and re-interviewed some people that we had interviewed prior. So we're kind of doing it as we go, but it's been really fun.
Good.
With that said, we will definitely still collaborate together on something once, the world rights itself and we can get back out there and educate.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. I'm really excited about all the work you guys are doing. I just think your office is so welcoming, and you're both so knowledgeable and doing such great work. So I'm really excited to be in partnership with you guys, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, we are too. We are for sure going to collaborate together in the future. So thank you, and take good care of yourself and your baby and your family, and stay well.
Of course, will do. I'll send Camper, my little girl, sends wet kisses to both of you at this time.
Awesome. I love them.
And we'll put up a link to your website.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for doing that, Annie. All right, you guys, thank you so much.
Thanks, Grace.
Grace.
Have a great day.